Nirvana. They'll always be a grunge band. People are never going to refer to Nirvana as classic rock.
I've heard that as well.
I think the Summit Radio does, yeah.
I think that with everything being labeled now, everything's just going to continue on like JD said.
Could split a lot of hairs, hip hop and rap, especially because rap is a vocal style.
Everyone knows what rock and roll is. It's a very large umbrella. It covers a whole bunch of stuff.
Could you say that the Gaga gimmick was an afterthought? You know, like she had the songs, but they said, nah, you need more.
She's definitely one that has the talent.
Yeah.
Can write, can do singing, songwriting.
We started coming out to the West Coast in the early 80s. We saw Kennedy's Black Flag, Flipper, all this, really nihilistic punk rock thing. Man, there's a lot of rules in this thing. You gotta wear this chain that way, and you gotta hate this particular kind of politics. It was just like all these rules, and we're like, what are these rules about? We want to make music. Music.
I was ready to be born ready.
Oh, yes. Sounds a bit like rock and roll, doesn't it?
10 seconds, guys.
From Mind Rocket Studio, between Ohio and Pennsylvania, covering the culture of popular music of yesterday and today. Speaking of music, you're listening to it. With your hosts, from the Raw Alternative, Rick Polo, from SYLM, Joe Sinkovich, and Lucas Gola. Here's your anchor, Jimmy Martin.
There's a song that's still unheard. There's a hope that still hangs on and never dies. There's a bunch of able words tied up in a bunch of tangled lies. And there's a broken man lost in trying to answer for his sins. And there's some folded hands begging for a way to start again. Inside this heart, all my fears, all my worries are alive and well. Inside this heart, come on love, come on, save me from myself. Somehow, it's deafening and it's quiet. Oh, it's empty and it's crowded all at once. And if you're looking, you can find it. Oh, another scar, another thing I've done. I live with everyone. I'm a fool for sure, and I'm insecure, lost to vanity and pride and greed and truth I can't ignore. But I'm faithful. Oh, this love is able to right the wrongs and raise the ruins, clinging to their hold inside this heart. All my fears, all my worries are alive and well. Inside this heart, come on love, come on, save me from myself somehow. Oh, this heart is beating, oh, this heart is beating, this heart is beating me up. Oh, this heart is beating, oh, this heart is beating, this heart is beating me up. Oh, this heart is beating, oh, this heart is beating, oh, this heart is beating me up. Well, come on love, inside this heart, all my fears, all my worries are alive and well. Yeah, and I have inside this heart. Come on, love, come on, save me from myself somehow. Oh, this heart is beating. Oh, this heart is beating. This heart is beating me up. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Punk is whatever we made it to be. It's a quote by D. Boone from the Minutemen. At the opening of the show, we heard a live in-session performance by J.D. Iker, a song called This Heart. On this episode, we're going to debate the question, is classic rock an eraless, timeless category description, or does it belong to the 1960s, 1970s? We're going to get in depth about the category classic rock. Also, we'll be listening to some Mind Rocket performances and talking about music yesterday and today. So with that all being said, JD, you want to say hello?
Yeah. Hi. Good to be here. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Pleasure to have you.
That song, This Heart, is that off a new record or is that an unreleased track?
That's brand new, yeah. Kind of still kicking it around a little bit, but I think it'll be on the next album.
So it's exclusive.
Exclusive?
Yeah, right.
Exclusive here?
Yeah, well, I mean, I played it a little bit around, but yeah, there are not too many recordings of it or anything, so yeah.
What have you been up to lately?
Did a lot of touring through February and took March to finish writing the next album, and I'm kind of starting to record and get all those things kind of sorted out for the next album.
Okay.
And then I hit the road again in April. I'm just doing some smaller gigs, and then I'll go on tour with the band in May. So kind of gearing up for that as well.
What number album is this?
This will be the fourth record. Yeah. So hoping it'll be a step up. You never know till it's done. So.
Right on. All right, let's get into this topic. So we actually put this out on that brand new website called Facebook, and I'm just going to read you the question as it was stated. Is the descriptive category tag classic rock a relative, non-genre, era-less term? Will our children someday refer to Passion Pit and Fall Out Boy as classic rock? Is classic rock a genre, a sound? And will the 1970s forever be the womb and owner of classic rock? Who wants to take a stab at that?
I find it interesting. For myself, kind of growing up into the 90s, into the early 2000s, by that time, 80s music was beginning to become classic rock. Motley Crue, Guns N' Roses. To me, that's classic rock, but I understand too, people that came up in the 80s and 90s, it was either current or music of maybe yesteryear, but definitely not classic. And, it's funny because I'm already looking at websites like Consequence of Sound and Pitchfork, and they're referring to acts like Sunny Day Real Estate and Death Cab for Cutie as the classics. So, I don't really think that it's limited to the 60s and 70s. I just think so many people that were brought up in that era, refer to it as that. It's definitely expanding.
Let me read the Wikipedia definition. It says classic rock is a radio format which developed from the album-oriented rock AOR format in the early 1980s. In the United States, the classic rock format features music ranging generally from the late 1960s to the late 1980s, primarily focusing on commercially successful hard rock, blues rock, and arena rock popularized in the 1970s. Although the format appeals mainly to adults, many classic rock acts consistently attract new generations of fans. Some classic rock stations also play a limited number of current releases which are stylistically consistent with the station's sound or from established classic rock artists who still produce new albums.
I definitely, I think that it's more of a radio format or I don't want to say a genre of music, but it's that era, because if you look at Oldies 1061, I believe it's called now, you go to that channel, that's still playing the oldies from the 50s and early 60s, I believe,
that's
is
true.
On the channel. And never are you putting on the Oldies 1061 and hearing, like some Led Zeppelin on there. Like, grandparents listening to 106.1, some Led Zeppelin came on, they would lose their minds. So it's not something I think that travels. Because if it travels, then Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and all that would be considered oldies by now, I would think, if that's how that works.
I do agree with you in a sense that the format of radio is kind of at a standstill. I believe the oldies, kind of cuts off at maybe I Want to Hold Your Hand era Beatles, but you're not going to really hear, maybe anything from Sgt. Pepper that might have crossed over to, the classic rock format. And if you think about it too, what's considered classic rock, like I mentioned, Guns N' Roses, you'll hear, but out at that very same time was The Cure and the Smiths. You don't hear that it never really made it to that level of mainstream radio airplay. So it's still lumped in with alternative, maybe in some instances now classic alternative. So I do agree that radio as a format is at a standstill, and it's kind of more relative to what's considered, pop and top 40. Would you agree?
I think I agree with you on that. I think radio format has a specific sound and a specific, there's a hit requirement to be on there. But I think classic rock, just the category encompasses a lot more. Like I think a lot of those bands, like some of the bands you just mentioned that aren't on the radio in classic rock, I think a lot of people still think of them as classic rock in broader term, But I think classic rock is kind of just, to me, and maybe it's maybe because of when I grew up or whatever, it's the 80s, 60s up through the 80s and stuff. But I think it's more of just like a vehicle to kind of hold all that. Because as right now, if we look at music right now, there's like a billion subgenres. But 30 years from now,
there's going to be 800 billion subgenres.
Yeah, right. And what happened before is it almost just needs to have a simpler, more encompassing...
Condenses itself, maybe?
Yeah, it's almost like just a necessary evil in a way, to keep everything organized. But I kind of think in the same way, classic rock might continue, but like just how we know the 60s has a sound, the 70s has a sound, and we all call it classic rock, we're just going to say classic rock from the 90s, or... You know what I mean? Like we'll knowingly use classic rock.
Everything now... We're all pretty close to the same age, I think. As we've listened to music from our teen years, everything has gotten its own tag, its own genre.
Right.
So I don't think that there's going to be the Pearl Jam is always going to be an alternative band or a grunge band, same thing with Nirvana. There'll always be a grunge band. People are never going to refer to Nirvana as classic rock.
I've heard
that as well.
I think the Summit Radio does, yeah.
I think that with everything being labeled now, everything's just going to continue on, like JD said, and it's just, everything's got a subgenre, and everything's got a subgenre off of that subgenre, and instead of just everything moving on lineal, it's just expanding everywhere.
I actually, in preparation for this interview, I talked with a younger cousin of mine, 19 years old, 18, 19, whatever, and if you're listening. But I actually asked them, what is classic rock? Because I always felt maybe 25 years in is about the cutoff. And they said Nirvana, Green Day, Korn, which really threw me through a loop.
Wow.
So what's the cutoff? Is it 10 years, 15 years? Or maybe this person is just young and is, because music has changed. If you look at the history of rock and roll, which I think we're going to talk about in later episodes, there really hasn't been a trend that's lived in rock more than 3 or 4 years. I mean, if you go back to the British invasion, 1964, by 67, 68, rock and roll became psychedelic and louder. The Beatles on I Want to Hold Your Hand weren't the Beatles on Sgt. Pepper. Hendrix and Jefferson Airplane and the fuzz pedal revolutionized, and if you look just down the line, every couple of years, it changes.
Yeah.
Classic rock has really kind of encompassed a really large era, but if you look at, the Led Zeppelins and the Black Sabbaths, but you also had the David Bowies and the T-Rexes, which sonically had nothing to do with each other, but they're all lumped in under classic rock.
I want to tack on to Joe's oldies reference, but before I do that, let me read a quote by Ozzy Osbourne. All that stuff about heavy metal and hard rock, I don't subscribe to any of that. It's all just music. I mean, the heavy metal from the 70s sounds nothing like the stuff from the 80s, and that sounds nothing like the stuff from the 90s. Who's to say what is and isn't a certain type of music? And that's an Ozzy Osbourne quote. But Joe made a good point with the oldies reference, with your comments that oldies has a sound. It has a sound, and you can't, in other words, in 15 years, Creedence Clearwater Revival and Jimi Hendrix are not going to be considered oldies.
I don't think so.
No. And you guys tell me if this is a good analogous argument to make. When you think of classic cars, you think of 57 Chevys or a 32 Coupe. Will a Ford Probe be, you know what I mean? Will a Ford Probe or Chevy Cavalier one day be a classic car? Classic rock, classic car, or is that two different things, apples and oranges?
It's similar. You know, a classic to somebody who was born in 1993 is just the car that you were driving because it was cheap or your dad gave it to you in 1993. You know what I mean? It's weird to admit that, you know, you're getting old and stuff that was like, well, that's not old. I was a senior in high school in 1993. You know what I mean? That's what was playing on the radio then. And yes, I guess, you know, 22 years later, that's a long time. You know, someone born in that year can go buy a beer in a bar and stuff like that.
What is it? 25 years is a classic car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think that's when you can get your vintage, your classic plates or whatever. Yep. I'm sure someone who bought an album in 1975 knew, and it's now on the classic rock station all the time. They probably don't think of it as that old either. You know, I've been listening to some of the same records for 20 years now, and unless I sit and specifically think about like, oh my God, that record's 25 years old now. Like I wouldn't know. It's just what I listen to. Is Under the Bridge from the Chili Peppers as classic rocky as Turn the Page, or something like that? Sure. Well, I mean, why not?
Yeah, I mean, it almost seems to me like maybe it's the issue isn't so much the music, it's just the timeline, because, you know, even in the greater genre of pop music in general, you know, which includes rock and everything other than maybe like classical and jazz, that really didn't start developing till what, you know, Joe was saying about the oldies and stuff. And so we had that sound, and then it evolved into more rock, and what's happening now is that there's still a lot of rock happening, and there's, you know, other types of pop, but the gap of time is just, or there's just too much of a timeline, and we don't have a proper category, but it's all getting thrown into, you know, it's just there's never been a timeline in history where there was pop music happening like it is now over this span of time. So it's almost like we're just kind of lumping things because we don't have there's no system in place or
as many, any type of genres. Cause you know, everybody wants to be that, you know, guess what? We just invented a new form of metal. Yeah, it's now called like, you know, box metal, and it's going to be the rage. And then, you know, everyone wants to be that person. So it's flooding. It's flooding. I think on an episode before we talked about how like the internet it's a great tool for finding music, but it's also a great tool for burying good music, because it's all out there and it's so accessible that stuff gets lost through the cracks all the time.
Maybe that's what classic rock really is. It's just the enduring tunes in the rock genre. You know, I mean, maybe that's the bottom line. Is it's just the tunes that were rock songs that endured, and that's classic.
Yeah, a timeless rock and roll song.
Yeah, right. I mean, maybe, and it could be, it could be a metal tune, it could be hard rock, whatever. But just it lasted. You know?
Yeah, it's Fred Whitaker from Kitchen Knife Conspiracy was talking about that earlier. Yeah. About just his mom putting on a song, or him putting on a song from an old CD that just. He knew all the words to it because it endured. It's been in there, and same thing with me. I despise Led Zeppelin, but every time a Led Zeppelin song comes on the radio, I know all the words to it because it's there and it's out there and it's always been there and it will always be there, and it's enduring. That's definitely a good point.
Is it a mistaken notion to say that the word classic speaks to the proximity of origin? In other words, when you talk about a 57 Chevy, those were the first cars, not the first cars, but when was the first automobile invented? Like the early 1900s, 1902, 1904? Is that something?
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah,
around there.
I mean, could you make the argument that classic rock speaks to the proximity of origin of rock? Like you might argue that classic cars speaks to the origin of the automobile? Not necessarily.
It makes sense.
Yeah. It makes some sense.
It definitely makes sense. There's also this, in terms of, I guess this relates more to the music end of it, there are certain sounds, at least to me, that sound somewhat dated, such as, the blues-influenced hard rock. And when I say that, I think Led Zeppelin, Aerosmith, Sabbath, 3 completely different artists, but you could tell there's a root in the blues. However, a band from the same time period, maybe even a little earlier, I think the Velvet Underground, they weren't so much bluesy as they were, they were kind of innovators of garage rock, but just they kind of took more of the rock and roll end of it and the dirt and the grime of that and cut out the blues.
Different drugs, Rick.
What's that?
Different drugs.
Probably right.
That's it. It's different drugs.
Yep.
But to me too, like when I listen to the Velvet Underground, I can hear a band doing that
heroin
today. Whereas when I hear Led Zeppelin, if I hear a band doing that today, it sounds kind of like a third-rate imitation.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you guys agree? Maybe there's an element in this sound or in the playing?
That's a good question. Let me read to you the definition of genre, which is one of the branches of this argument or question. Genre, a category of artistic composition, as in music or literature, categorized by similarities in form, style, or subject matter. So when you say sound, Rick, and Lucas mentioned sound, and I think JD mentioned sound too, I think of style and form. So genre, it really is sort of like a composite of sound, form, and style, I think. So is classic rock a genre?
Sure. When you turn on, say you turn on WYSU, and they're going to play classical music. You know what classical music is. Everybody knows what classical music is. It's the instrumentation, it's, whatever. But the classical music, it spans centuries. Somebody could compose something tomorrow, and somebody could have composed something in 1650, and it's classical music. You know what I mean? It's the instrumentation. It's the way it's done.
The gap grows, the category grows.
Mm-hmm. Right. But it's all, when you turn on a smooth jazz station, you know what you're going to get. When you turn on the Weather Channel, you're going to get the same kind of thing. As
if you put on the Weather Channel and golf comes on.
Yeah, when you turn on a classic rock station, you're going to get to hear Seeger, no matter what. We are somehow in this country, with radios, doomed to hear Bob Seger every day. Every day forever. Every day until you die.
You put it on, you're a half hour away.
A half hour away from hearing, one of any Bob Seger songs. I've never been too eager for Seger.
Let me read to you guys. Fever. Let me read to you a response that we got at the Speaking of Music Facebook page, in theory. It's from Lee from the band Third Class. Lee wrote, "Yes, I do believe that the term classic rock will come to apply to those sort of acts. Maybe like alternative to indie. The name will be tweaked, but I believe one day Passion Pit and Fall Out Boy will be akin to Yes and Kiss."
I hope not.
So with that being said, let's just go around and get everybody's closing summary statement on this question.
Are you going to start with me?
Sure.
Okay.
Hey. Well, there's other people to talk, though, Rick. Don't forget.
I believe that one day classic rock will encompass everything that Joe Sinkovich has ever done.
Oh, boy. I can only hope to be on the same channel as some Led Zeppelin. But I think that it's more of a time. It's more of a time, and that will just always be classic rock, and everything else is just going to be named something else and just continue on.
I think that as long as somebody is playing instruments, if somebody's got like a guitar or two and a bass guitar and a drum kit, there is the potential for classic rock.
Yeah,
it can be made. You can still make a classic rock song. We know the ingredients. We know what it takes. I think, you know, it's timeless. It's its own thing.
I'm kind of with Lucas on that. I think it's kind of a catch-all genre term that will get used in the future, but we'll also understand that, you know, the subgenre idea that these bands are very distinct bands, but they kind of fall under that umbrella.
Okay, excellent. That was a very fruitful debate. I enjoy a good conversation where I'm sort of right at the cusp of losing my patience, wanting to interject and, you know, get my thoughts out there. So that's a good thing, I guess.
This is Dan from Coal Fired Bicycle. Speaking of music, you're listening to it right now.
So JD,
yeah,
you're going to do another song here in studio. Can you set up this next song you're going to perform for us?
Yeah, it's called Blue Coat on the Carousel, and I love the book Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger, and this is a song kind of written from the perspective of the main character in that book, Holden Caulfield. And if you haven't read the book, you definitely you should. But the main character, Holden Caulfield, kind of goes through the whole story, hating on life. He's a real cynic, and at the end of the book, he's with his sister Phoebe, and she's going around in the rain on this carousel. And she's kind of the moment. I feel like she's his shining light. You know, he's that point of positivity for him, and it's kind of the moment in the book where he just sees how happy she is. It's like he realizes maybe he doesn't quite have it all figured out. You know, and that was kind of an important moment in the book for me reading it. And so yeah, that's where the song comes from.
Very cool. All right. Well, after you do this song, we're going to play a clip of one of our past Mind Rocket sessions. The band's Baroque Monody, who many of you know. One of our co-hosts, Rick Polo, is the guitarist in that band. And,
really? He pretends to be.
The clip is going to be from the song Emperor 3 Inferno. And again, it's one of our past Mind Rocket project sessions. And we'll touch on that later if those of you that are interested and have not heard of the Mind Rocket project. All right, let's listen to JD do another song in studio. This track's called Blue Coat on the Carousel.
I'm a victim of semantics, if you know what I mean. I'm torn between the things I think and the things I'm supposed to say. And it seems like only whispers really carry round here. These phonies run for mild weather like it's all they have to fear. But you are warm to the touch, you make me wonder if I haven't seen enough. 'Cause I remember sitting not too far away, and you look so damn nice round and round there in the rain. Oh, and you look so beautiful with your blue coat on the carousel. For a moment I forgot it all this world spinning round me they call terrible. Well, it's pouring down now, but I love the smell of rain. Why don't we stick around here if it's all the same to you? I'm the story gonna write, but I swear I'm the only one who's caught up with the times. 'Cause I'm the last one of my line, and maybe that makes me insane, but I'm the last one who is looking around for anything. Oh, you look so beautiful with your blue coat on the carousel. For a moment I forgot it all this world spinning round me they call terrible. Oh, and you look so brave, like you always do, like you know you should, yeah. And I feel the same when I see an angel of what's still good. Oh, no. 'Cause I've been chasing beautiful. I've been chasing beautiful. Oh, and you look so beautiful with your blue coat on the carousel. For a moment I forgot it all All this world spinning round me they call terrible. I've been chasing beautiful. I've been chasing beautiful. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Hello, this is Lee Boyle of the podcast Nursery of the band Third Class and the comedy troupe Bullskit Productions. Maybe you haven't heard of us? Huh? Anyways, you're listening to Speaking of Music. The Speaking of Music show is an audio editorial program that dives deep behind the curtain of music culture of yesterday and today. Enjoy.
When the Beatles broke up, I remember the article in the New York Daily News that said, the Beatles are over and the heir apparent is a new blues outfit called Led Zeppelin.
Very cool, very cool. I like your rasp, JD. You have your vocal texture is very pleasing because I think it has a lot of attack, but also it's soothing too. So you have a good dynamic profile as a vocalist, and I think that lends itself well to the lyrical message you're trying to get across.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for saying that. Appreciate it.
And as we said before we went into that, we also listened to a clip of Baroque Monody doing Emperor 3. Rick, can you really quickly just break down what your experience was with the Mind Rocket Project video shoots?
Oh, absolutely. Well, we did the album here at Mind Rocket, so I knew a little bit what we were going into working with Josh, but it was the first time we had actually worked with you. We had a blast. I really it's a really cool opportunity, I think, for bands to be seen and heard, and having a professionally mixed track with that is, always a plus. And, it's just another way for local artists to network. It really helps in building a press kit, things like that. So I think it's a great opportunity. We had a blast. Anytime I get to play, it's a good time.
What kind of observations do you make, like if you're touring through the Midwest versus the West Coast or the East Coast? Yeah. Do you take note of like how people respond to your music and culturally?
A little bit, yeah. It does seem different. I almost wonder if it's more just the general scene, in certain towns. Like there are definitely areas where there just seems to be a big interest in music in general. Like we play a place up kind of near Grand Rapids. It's called Pin Drop Concerts at a venue called Seven Steps Up. And there's like a huge interest in music, and like kind of that area is just this pocket of support. You can be, first time I played there didn't have a name in town or anything. People were there anyway. You know what I mean? So there's just like that kind of musical interest. And then other towns you play in, it's kind of, the turnout just isn't the same. And yeah, it's weird how there's just certain areas have that enthusiasm or whatever. So I don't know if that really answers what you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. You recently you were part of some program, I believe it was with a local school district.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, the Vindicator, we have a song called I'd Like to Get to Know You. It's kind of this fatally upbeat tune about being open-minded and whatnot. And the Vindicator, Todd Franco, the editor over there, got in touch and asked about maybe doing this thing with schools where, if you guys know about lip dub videos, they're like basically a video where they're real popular among high schools, but kids lip sync to the song and they kind of coordinate their whole the whole school community gets involved and they're running down hallways singing the songs and whatnot. So they wanted to do that with this.
Yeah,
they're pretty cool.
Yeah,
and some of them have like millions of views and whatnot. But
lip dub,
yeah.
Okay.
And so they wanted to do that with our song "I'd Like to Get to Know You," and then kind of build it around an anti-bullying theme because the song is about kind of understanding things, not kind of taking things in stride and whatnot. So they built this contest, and actually it's still going on. This is the final week of voting and stuff. But there were 11 schools that turned in videos, and you can go on and see all the videos at vindy.com and vote for your favorite and whatnot. And then the winning school will get there's gonna be an anti-bullying commercial built around their video, and I think it's a cool thing. And being a part of it has been awesome. I've got to play at a couple schools and talk to the kids and. It takes a lot of effort to make a music video of any kind, so it's been an awesome honor to see kids rally around the song and stuff. Really big deal for us. We were excited.
Awesome, man.
Yeah,
it's good to see them do a local,
a
local artist too.
Yeah, that was I think the coolest part. He was some people had said like, well, why don't we just do "Don't Stop Believing" or whatever, and Todd Franco's kind of had my back, but he was like, this is about the community. Let's use the community, which is cool. It's a nice thing. So.
It builds the local scene and makes
Definitely.
it better for everyone. And the high school kids that are doing that are the next generation of kids starting bands that are going to be playing around here and be the local scene. So,
absolutely, yeah.
And why not start now?
Yeah, I agree.
That's awesome.
It's cool.
So tell us a little bit about that guitar you're playing there, man.
I'm playing it's a Taylor 412, and I've hated and loved that guitar over the years. I'm starting to like it again. I finally changed the strings on it to medium gauge, a little bit heavier, and it sounds a little bit fuller body, but they're so bright that I don't know. I go back and forth liking it and not liking it, but right now it's good. It's good by me. So I had to adjust the neck on it a little bit, and it's back in my good graces. Yeah.
Excellent. Sounds really nice.
Thanks.
What else do you play? I mean, is that like your main one, even reluctantly, or?
Oh yeah, no. I should say. I mean, I do like that thing, but yeah, that's my main acoustic, and then I play. Actually, I play. You guys are gonna laugh. I play a first act electric. I have a Strat. Nice. I've dumped tons of money in and stuff, but I kind of switch between acoustic and electric with the band, and there's a buddy of mine who does some guitar work and stuff, and he had this thing hanging on the wall from far away, and I didn't know what it was. I'm like, what is that guitar? It's like kind of like. It's like a reddish, pinkish thing. And I saw it from across the room. I'm like, I'm not selling this guitar, I know right now, reddish pink, first act. But saw it from across the room. I was like, what is that thing? He's like, you can have it if you want. He's like, I souped it up a little bit. And they changed out the tuning pegs and the just did some like minor work on it and stuff. But it plays as good. I went to Music Exchange in Chicago and played a bunch of Strat. This thing, I'm telling you, plays amazing. And so the band makes fun of me constantly, but I don't care. I love the thing. It's kind of, I like the ironic element of it. Like, here's a guy who's full-time musician playing a first act, but I like it.
You just remind him that your name's in the title of the band. So
I try to pull that card as much as I can. It always works out well.
Yeah, I bet it does.
There's nothing more fun than a diamond in the rough.
Yeah, it's that kind of story for sure. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
How important do you feel as a vocalist it is to have the right guitar? There's a little bit of a difference, I guess, when you're, just solely a musician and maybe backing vocals here and there.
Yeah.
Or you are the front man, you want to put on a little bit of a show, be a little animated.
Right.
Is it really important having the right instrument to allow you to do that?
Yeah, do you mean sonically or more like the look of it or what? Or
I would say sonically, aesthetically.
Yeah,
both.
Okay,
answer both questions.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
What makes your eyes pop?
Sorry. Yeah, for me, I kind of like simple acoustic guitars. I like. I don't think we have anything too showy going on, but I do like. I think like the reason I like that guitar and I still continue to play is because it's a little brighter sounding. It doesn't have as many overtones as like a heavier like a Martin or something might. And so, you know, it sits in the mix a lot better with the band and cuts through. And so I can hear it really well in the mix, and it doesn't, you know, blends well. There's room for the frequency wise for the other instruments to kind of fit in. So that's good about that. But when you play solo, it's kind of nice to have a little more bottom end, a little, you know, so that you got that the bass line coming through or whatnot. So I guess it depends, but I think it's like anything else. You kind of end up just picking an instrument that you like the sound of when you play it, and you work around that, you know.
And you hope it isn't hot pink.
Yeah, right. If you find a pink one and that's the right one, you just live with that. You know?
That's it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what about being the front man, having a guitar that's good to look at, you know, or being a singer-songwriter? Do you want something that, you know, is nice to look at as well as...
I think so. I mean, I definitely am never going to be playing a flying V or anything like that. It's just not my style, but...
I'm pretty good at Photoshop, so you might be playing one.
Great. I got to watch what I say. No, I think I definitely have to like the look of the guitar to play it. I mean, that's definitely a part of it, which is an interesting dynamic, because I wonder where the line is when I'm playing two guitars. One sounds a little better to me, but the other one looks a little better. I wonder, you know, is the vanity of it going to take over or not? But I've been fortunate enough to kind of find the compromise.
Pick the right one.
Yeah, right.
You mean illegal cable? Who told you that? What is his name? I want it. You're offering me a bribe. What you have just done is illegal. And in this state, if convicted, you could be fined up to $5,000 or spend 6 months in a correctional facility. I'm just jerking your chin. I'll juice you up.
We're going to play another Mind Rocket project session from the band Resonaut, who our panelists are musicians themselves.
Heard of those guys before.
You've heard of them? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Joe, as many of you know, is the vocalist for Resonaut. So just to kind of give you a little teaser, we're going to play one of their songs from their Mind Rocket project session. If there's anybody listening that wants to submit a question to the show, you can do so by going to Facebook, search out Speaking of Music. We want to thank Josh Roman here at Mind Rocket Studio for taping our episodes. And special thanks to Adam Jackson for our show intro. And the logo is partially designed by Ali Byerly and Gene Tarquinio. Thanks to them for doing that. And don't forget to tune in to the Homegrown Show at CD93. You can find that at 933fmthewolf.com. That's on Sunday nights at 10 p.m., right after you're done listening to this, we assume. Thank you guys. JD, thanks for being a part of this.
Thanks for having me.
Closing out the episode, we're going to do a Mind Rocket project session by the band Resonaut. The track's called Oh Captain.